I think that is where to start, and after discovering the first process, how to manage a new ocean of insights around our process.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Welcome to another episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of this podcast series. It's an absolute pleasure to be the host. I get to glean so much from each of these conversations, and I hope you're gleaning a lot too. As always, before we dive in, if you've got your note-taking devices, please get that ready, whether you bring up a Word doc or you get a notepad and pen. I am so confident we're going to learn a lot from this episode or from this conversation. We're going to be diving into process mining as a particular topic. But today I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Ricardo Henriques. And it's an absolute pleasure to sit down with him. He's got a very extensive process mining background, has written a book, Process Mining in Action. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later on as well. But Ricardo, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Daniel. Also to having me today, and congratulations by your project of Process Pioneers.
Thank you. That's great. I'm so excited for this conversation. We, as we were saying before this, before we started recording, the process mining, this particular topic, it's one that I think a lot of people have heard about now. That it's been this buzz that's gone throughout the world, and a lot of people are hearing about this topic of process mining. But probably one of the most common questions I'm getting is, where is it delivering value for a real life organization? We understand it in theory, but how does it work in practice? And so I think that's what we're going to dive into today. But talk to us about and give us a little bit of context around when were you first introduced to the topic of process mining, and take us on a little bit of a journey leading up to the work that you're doing today.
Yeah. So, my role as a business enablement transformation lead requires an action in 5 different areas. So the first area is business process management. The second one is knowledge management, process automation, process intelligence, and also digital acceleration. So 5 years ago, more or less, we try to explore how to solve the big issue that many times process owners have regarding the process exceptions explanation. Regarding the speed to understand what kind of issues are we having in our processes. So in that moment, we understood that process mining could be one option to try to solve that kind of difficulties that process owners in the daily basis of that role could try to solve. So I think our business in our context. So we need to be relevant for our customers, while we need to be efficient running our operations, and also completely compliant with the regulatory requirements. So our challenge was to find out if there is some kind of technique or technology to try to support us in this difficult mission. And the story starts from that point.
That's amazing, to be relevant to your customers, to be efficient in your operations, and to be compliant to regulations. I'm sure that you're piquing a lot of, or a lot of ears are peaking, or how would you say it, turning this way right now as they're hearing you talk about that, because I'm sure it's a challenge that a lot of our organizations are facing. But I guess, when obviously, thanks for that sort of context and background, but what would you say is one of the biggest challenges an organization faces when adopting process mining? I think that, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So what are the biggest challenges that organizations are facing, and what's holding organizations back from realizing the full value that process mining can deliver?
Yeah, I think that we have some biggest challenge. The first one I tried to identify is understand correctly the concept of process mining. Even several mature organizations, they didn't understand quite well what is exactly process mining, and because the concept is not so obvious, so we need to unlearn if we want to be free from some bias that we could have working with another kind of technology, for example, with the business intelligence technology. So I think the first one is regarding the understanding around the process mining concept. So this is the first one. The second one, I think that is where to start, and after discovering the first process, how to manage a new ocean of insights around our process. So we are not talking about the traditional BI approach, because in the BI approach we are trying to create a conception of our process performance indicators or our KPIs. But here, with process mining, we are dealing with the suggestive technology. So technology that is giving us new insights, a new ocean of different insights. So we could be a little bit in trouble with so many new information. So we also need to have some structured ways to deal with that new reality. So the other one is to create the right conditions to connect technical and functional knowledge. And here, I think that is the issue regarding the process mining team, because we need to have people that know quite well the functional design of our systems and the processes and the business, but also the technical part of data structures. So where is the data? What is the right data to collect and to analyze in process mining? So we need to create like a fast track to access and analyze the right data of the process. And this is the third one. The final one, I think that is a more like executive one, but is also very important. That is from the beginning, we need to realize the value that we are capturing from process mining, because if we don't have any methodology to measure what kind of value are we capturing from process mining, it will be difficult even to scale the initiative. So that is also another recommendation that I share with you.
That's fantastic. That's great. It's really interesting points there. And probably if I was if for those that are listening, that last sort of 4 or 5 minutes, that was pure gold right there. So needing to unlearn bias in business technology. So you mentioned that. Is that regarding, say, because I've come across different organizations where they have a certain perception on what process management is, but that's based on something they did 10, 15 years ago, maybe like an 18-month process mapping exercise that never really delivered significant value to the organization. So when you start talking about business processes, there's almost this resistance coming up because they think they understand what business process management is, but maybe what BPM was like 15 years ago, not how managing or discovering or optimizing your processes looks today. Is that what you mean by unlearning that bias regarding business technology?
Yes, I think during that long periods, some bias is impregnated in the organization. So we need to unlearn. Even if you think a little bit about that, even in our academia or in our university, sometimes the learnings that came from that reality are more aligned with another kind of technology and another kind of vision. So I think that we need to uninstall or unlearn if we want to be completely free and open to this new reality, because that is a very important ingredient to this recipe.
Yeah. And one other thing you mentioned there, which I thought was quite key, was getting in trouble with so much information, because process mining allows you to open up so many areas of the process. So you're talking about the customer experience in a process, or the efficiency of the process, or the compliance of is our workforce, are our resources complying to the process that's actually been defined. And so there's so many different areas that process mining can deliver upon, but that is a question or a topic that has come up is, where do you begin? Like, where do you even start? It's almost like, and I could see organizations maybe biting off more than they can chew, going after bigger projects that, instead of those short, smaller gains that they can deliver upon to prove that value, because process mining for most organizations, I would say, is a relatively new thing if it has been adopted, and obviously a very new thing for those organizations that haven't adopted it. So there'd still be a little bit of pitching to your senior leaders, that C-level executive, that, hey, this is what process mining can do. That they were obviously convinced of it in theory, because they would have never signed the contract to, deploy those resources and to buy the different tools. But where do you begin with process mining when maybe you do have limited resources and there's so much power sitting there in one tool? What should you be looking for, or what's the criteria for where you start?
Yeah, regarding that, in our case, we try to select the most critical part of our process execution in our business. But I agree with you. So the best way to start is trying to have a smaller initiative, like a proof of value. In our case, we did also a movement that was great. That was the proof of value was the starting point of our next project. So we start to study the cycle between invoice generation until energy supply interruption. So for customers that are not paying the bills. So with more or less 15 different events. But after the proof of value, and in that proof of value, we found more than 5,000 different routes of our invoices. But after that, we expand a little bit the scope of the proof of value, and we integrate also contracting and the sales part. So try to have like order to cash cycle. So the idea was to start smaller, proof of value, and after in a continuous delivery approach. So our project was like the second phase of the POV. Okay, so without having any kind of interruption, because that is also a very important part when we are doing the proof of value. If we cut for a long time period after the proof of value that initiative, that could be difficult to get new sponsorship and start with a big project. So I think incremental implementation could be should be the best approach.
Yeah, great. And that's fantastic. And from your experience and how you've seen process mining be adopted, what are some of the biggest wins or tangible benefits that you've seen an organization realize from process mining? Obviously, you mentioned a couple of different things there, like identifying 5,000 paths through a process, which obviously that in and of itself delivers a lot of value just with that little bit of insight. But can you maybe tell us a little bit of a couple of different projects or specific deliverables, and obviously censor the information that you're not allowed to share, but where process mining has delivered significant value in any of those sort of topics that you mentioned, like relevance to customers or increasing efficiency or for compliance to regulations, things like that?
Yeah. So I think that one quick win regarding benefits of process mining is the speed that we are introducing, understanding the business activity and solving problems. So if you compare the as is and the to be, the past and the future situation, with or without process mining, you will see a very different pace for the process owner and also process specialists around the process owner, trying to solve some process exceptions, process issues. So I think speed is one of the first ones, and is not only speed to solve the problems, but also to identify the problems. And the other one, I think that is the visibility about the process execution and how are we impacting business with the decisions that we are taking. So how is it, if we think a little bit about that with me, how is it possible to make the digital transformation without knowing how are we running our processes? So I think that was also transparency and visibility. I think was also a very important benefit that we could capture. So and after that we measured that benefits impacting our business. And if we measure the net promoter score, so the satisfaction of specific processes that we touch, or even some cost reduction that we introduce in specific operations, because we are, for example, automating parts of our activity. So the business case of process mining is big, and you need to have like machine to calculate every day the value that we are captured. So, but the key point is to create that methodology. So every time that you are discovering a new process and that you will improve that process, how to retain that value and to understand if you are improving or not, because that is also an interesting part of process mining. That is also to understand if we are taking some decisions, if we are impacting positively or not our business.
Yeah, great. And there'll be a lot of people listening to this conversation right now that would be in a position where process mining hasn't been introduced. So it's a new topic. It's a new concept for the organisation, and maybe they've bought into the idea, but they're wondering, how do you pitch it to senior leadership? How do you get that buy-in? What language do you have to use when speaking to these senior leaders, where they may not care about the finer detail and analysis and all of the functionality of a particular tool? They're more interested about the strategic objectives of the organization. So I guess how should these people, these internal employees, approach, pitching process mining to their organization?
Yeah, regarding that, I think that we did two different movements. So regarding the executive team, I think the pitch should be more aligned with the process excellence and also with the business transformation. So they need to understand that process mining could be a very important enabler if we want to raise or increase our maturity level managing our processes. So reach a different index regarding process excellence, and also if we want to have a different pace regarding business transformation. So, but I agree that the nature of the business could also be one variable that will also leverage the vision of the executive teams. Because, for example, if we are working for a shared services company, maybe the drive will be cost optimization, so they will focus on that. But if you are talking, for example, about a business that is doubling EBITDA every year, so increasing a lot, maybe business transformation will be the right driver. So regarding the executive team, I think both process excellence and business transformation, I think that are the ingredients for that pitch. Regarding end users and all the adoption of process owners and the process specialists and business analysts. So regarding that, we try to create like a new community around. So they are our process pioneers. I think that in the very beginning, they need to try, they need to experiment, they need to understand well the concept, but they also need to act like a community. So learning in each other, but also providing some lessons learned between members of our community. So in our case, we adopt and we create a COE, but with some champions that are in the business operations that are people with a lot of autonomy regarding process mining. So they are creating their own process analytics, and we are only providing them the right conditions to work. But I think that is also very important regarding adoption to create this community, and also the COE, the central team that is creating all the conditions.
And do you find that I have heard that sometimes having such transparency around your business processes, sometimes it can you can potentially face resistance or objections from the process participants or process performers, the ones that are actually carrying out the work. All of a sudden, they're being using process mining, the work that they're doing is being, I guess, critiqued or analysed on a far finer detail than it ever has before. Do you find that that does bring up any resistance, or sometimes people that are or even process owners that are a bit, nervous that, of what it's going to expose? I mean, obviously everyone should have the organization's best interests at heart in terms of the work that they're doing and what they're setting out to achieve. But do you find that, that's something to navigate, is people that all of a sudden feel like they're getting exposed?
Yeah. So exactly, I agree with you. So we have different kind of reactions regarding process mining. So in that initial phase where we are discovering process regarding or using process mining, I think that people react in a different way. So some of our people are saying, "Oh, this is completely impossible," but after demonstrating that the insights are right, so they shift completely to, "Oh, this is not how this is possible." So they change a little bit. So, but I think that these kind of initiatives and projects need to have also a change management stream, precisely to deal with this kind of reactions. But if we start creating this kind of community, and you have people adopting this kind of resistance will change day after day, because the most resistant part or members, they will see that another teams they are evolving and they are practicing more and more and capture value. So you could even introduce some gamification in your community, and that kind of resistance maybe you could feel in the beginning of the project, but after that that will be solved. So with change management and also with this kind of engagement, that is not only the COE team with that members, but also engaging all the people and even providing experiences between them and putting that peers in the same table, telling their stories. But I agree with you that that is usually an objection regarding process mining.
And I've also heard that another hurdle to getting started with process mining can be having quality data. I'd imagine that's another thing that process mining exposes is, do you have good data? Is it being documented well or recorded well? Because that will, as I understand, that will be a huge difference between how successful the process mining adoption or implementation is, depending on the data in your existing systems. Is that, do you find that's a major hurdle for a lot of organizations? And how quickly is it to go from an organization with messy data to an organization where they can actually get significant value from process mining?
Yeah, I agree with you. So not only data dependence, but also data distance. So because sometimes our sources are we don't have the right access of that data, or even we have access but we don't know sufficiently, because if we are working with business teams that don't have that technical knowledge around data structures, so data is a very important point for our process mining strategy. Not only the data dependence, data quality, and also the data distance. But regarding quality, I think data quality is an issue and a requirement, but also an opportunity, because in our case, we are also using process mining to improve the data quality of our processes. So, and you could use some kind of techniques also to provide and collaborate with the data management teams around quality, because you have like an accelerated way to detect that kind of issues regarding quality. So we are not seeing that like a threat, but more like an opportunity to improve. But I agree with you. If we have a specific process that we are trying to discover, and we don't have qualified and the right data, is very difficult even to analyze and take the best initial insights to improve our process.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at, I guess the future of process mining, obviously over the last 5 years, process mining has come a long way in terms of what's possible. When you look at the future, the next 5-10 years, when it comes to process mining, what sort of trends are you seeing, and what do you think the future looks like when it comes to process mining? Are we going to see sort of more cross compatibility, or more tools with process mining and RPA and artificial intelligence and all of these different things? Are we going to see some sort of mesh of a number of these streams or strands, or what does the future of process mining look like to you?
Yeah, I'm seeing that future less like a silo and more like an ecosystem. So even in our case, we are creating like an intelligent operations ecosystem where we are combining process mining with RPA, process mining with BPM, or with even with chatbots, for example. Because imagine process mining could give you very interesting insights about your process when you are designing a new chatbot, for example, for a front office virtual assistant operation, for example. So I'm seeing that feature more in an ecosystem approach. But we know that technology is also evolving. So combining process mining and task mining, I think that is also great. We are now working on that. So having the not only the server side perspective, but also the desktop side perspective of how your operation is executing the process. Also, process simulation. I think process simulation is also very important if we want to introduce some kind of improvements, but only forecasting some decisions that we want to take, and also the most challenged part, that is combining with AI and machine learning, also to predict your future events. So not only seeing your process in the past or in the present, but also generate simulated or future events. But to do that, we need to have more historical data. So the challenge is a little bit different. But I think that is also one trend. And the final one that our team is also working on, that is the combination between process mining and also knowledge management. Because imagine if you have a specific working instruction procedure, for example, a specific content that is being consumed by thousands of operators every day. If we improve that content, maybe we could have some impact in our performance. So we could use also process mining to understand if our contents, the revised ones or the optimized ones, are impacting well or not the business operations. So that area we mentioned like augmented learning, but is also very interesting to work.
That's great. That's great. Lots of things to explore, and I'm sure the future of process mining is going to be, probably overwhelming for some and exciting for others. But I think that there's lots of organisations that are yet to dip their toes in the water, so to speak. But for those that have been listening to this episode and following along the conversation, for some of them, I'm sure that you've piqued an interest in process mining. For some of them, they may have heard of the topic before, and this is their initial sort of introduction to it. For others, they may already be using it but struggling to get results. But for whoever it is that's sort of listening to this episode, where should they go to learn more about this topic, to educate themselves, to understand how to the best practices and things like that? Because obviously in a 40-minute conversation, we can only scratch the surface on a couple of different key topics. But where should the audience go, the Process Pioneers community go to learn more?
Yeah, I think that there is one interesting source in the internet that is processmining.org, where you could explore a lot of information about process mining. So not only the theory, but also real world use cases, so also practical one. So this is an internet website. And I'm also suspect to share with you a second one, that is the Process Mining in Action book, that I was one of the co-authors. And there, the interesting part is that you have also an introduction about all the theory, but also several real-world use cases to understand the right application of process mining in different business.
That's great. That's awesome. And I think that's the key or missing link for a lot of people, that, you can learn process mining in theory, but, learning from those that have been there and done that, that's where a lot more value can come from. But so I'd encourage you guys that are listening to this, get the Process Mining in Action book. I'm going to find it myself and work my way through it. So I'm excited for that. But Ricardo, I just want to thank you for jumping on this call today and having this conversation with me. I've certainly been gleaning a lot, and I've got a page full of notes here of new things that I've learned, and I'm sure that the audience has gleaned a lot from this conversation as well. So thanks for sitting down with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It was a pleasure also for me, and thank you very much, Daniel, for the invitation.